When your world is invaded, what would you do? Would you run? Would you fight? I did neither. I offered my last bucket of water to the alien commander who came to kill me, and that simple act changed everything. The sky did not tear open with thunder. There was no warning siren, no final broadcast, no heroic speech. It just darkened. Not like a storm. Storms move. Storms breathe. This darkness arrived and stayed, as if the sky itself had decided to stop pretending. I was standing in a dry field when the first shadow passed overhead. The soil beneath my boots cracked like old bone. Dust rose not from wind, but from vibration, something massive displacing the air. I remember thinking, absurdly, that the clouds looked organized. Then the sound came. A low-frequency hum felt more in the ribs than the ears. Animals screamed. Machines died. Every digital thing around me went silent, as if the planet itself had been muted. Above us, structures descended, angular, metallic, indifferent. No flags. No symbols. No attempt to communicate. Just arrival. Within minutes, cities burned. Within hours, the world's defenses, so carefully imagined, so confidently funded, collapsed like paper in rain. This was not a war. This was a correction. 3 days later, water became currency. 5 days later, it became religion. 7 days later, it became memory. The invaders did not poison the oceans or burn the atmosphere. They did something far more precise. They took control. Satellites vanished. Desalination plants went dark. Rivers were diverted by machines that did not ask permission from geography. Rain still fell, but never where it was needed. They didn't kill indiscriminately. They let thirst do the work. By the 10th day, I was alone. The people who ran first died first. Roads clogged, fuel ran out, panic ate itself alive. The people who fought died loudly, bravely, uselessly. I stayed. Not because I was brave, not because I had a plan, because I had nowhere else to go. My shelter was a half-collapsed utility building at the edge of a forgotten agricultural zone. Concrete walls. No power. No signal. A single functioning hand pump over an underground reserve. Ancient, overlooked, blessedly mechanical. I had water. Not much. Enough to survive if I was careful. Enough to matter. On the 14th day, the scouts came. They were tall, narrow, armored in overlapping plates that reflected the world in fractured angles. Their movement was economical, precise, no wasted steps, no hesitation. They did not speak. They scanned, marked, moved on. I watched from the shadows, my fingers tight around the handle of the bucket, my throat already dry with fear. That was when I understood something crucial. They weren't looking for people. They were looking for resources. The commander arrived at dusk. The sky above the horizon glowed with distant fires, painting the clouds in dull reds and sickly oranges. Ash drifted like snow that refused to melt. The ground trembled, not from ships this time, but from footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. I stepped out into the open before I could talk myself out of it. The commander was taller than the scouts, broader, wrapped in darker armor etched with faint, pulsing lines. The helmet was smooth, featureless, except for a single vertical slit that glowed faintly from within. It stopped 10 meters away. Its weapon was already raised. A device unlike anything I'd ever seen, part blade, part emitter, humming softly as if impatient. I knew what it was there for. The pump. The water. Me. I should have begged. I should have thrown myself to the ground, screamed, cursed, prayed. Instead, I did the stupidest thing of my life. I lifted the bucket, the last bucket of clean water I had, and I walked toward the being that had ended my world. Every step felt like betrayal of my instincts, my species, myself. The commander tilted its head slightly. A calculation. A reassessment. At 5 meters, I stopped. My hands were shaking so badly the water rippled against the metal sides. I raised the bucket higher. Drink, I said. My voice cracked, dry and thin in the dead air. I know you're not here to talk. I know you don't need permission. But you look like you've crossed a long way to get here. Silence. The weapon did not lower. I don't have weapons, I continued. I don't have anything you want except this. And I was going to die anyway. That last part surprised me. It was true. I just thought, I said, swallowing hard, that if I was going to die, I'd rather do it having chosen one thing for myself. The bucket trembled. The commander did not move. Seconds stretched, heavy and suffocating. Then, the weapon powered down. Not fully, just enough. The commander stepped closer. Up close, I could see the armor wasn't pristine. Fine scratches ran along its surface. Burn marks. Dried residue that was definitely not oil. It reached out. Its hand was not monstrous, not clawed, long-fingered, jointed differently than ours, but unmistakably deliberate. It dipped one finger into the water, paused. Then slowly it removed its helmet. The face beneath was not what I expected. No fangs, no mandibles, no horror pulled from nightmares. Blue-gray skin patterned with faint, bioluminescent lines that pulsed softly with each breath. Eyes large and dark reflecting the dying light. A face capable of expression, capable of weariness. The commander knelt. It took the bucket with both hands and drank. Not greedily, not desperately, reverently. I stood there empty-handed, watching the last thing keeping me alive disappear, feeling something strange bloom in my chest. Relief. When the bucket was empty, the commander looked up at me and spoke, not aloud, inside my mind. You should not have done that. The voice was calm, controlled, heavy with something that felt like age. I know, I whispered. I keep making poor decisions. A pause. Your kind usually screams. I get that a lot. Another pause, longer this time. What is your designation? My name, I said. It doesn't matter anymore. The commander studied me. Names always matter, it replied. Especially after extinction. The word hit harder than any weapon. Extinction. I laughed short, sharp, almost hysterical. Then I guess you should remember mine, I said. Since you're the one who'll finish it. The commander rose to its full height. For a moment, I thought I had miscalculated everything. Then it said, I did not come here to kill you. My breath caught. Then why are you here? The bioluminescent lines along its face brightened slightly. To decide whether your species deserves to continue. That was how the trial began. Not in a courtroom, not with judges or laws, but in a ruined field at sunset, with an empty bucket between us. They did not take me prisoner. They walked beside me. The commander, who eventually allowed me to understand its title rather than its name, led me through the remains of my world as if conducting an inspection. Cities reduced to skeletal frameworks. Vehicles fused into the streets they once traveled. Towers collapsed inward, like lungs that had exhaled for the last time. The invaders were everywhere but distant, efficient, focused. They did not loot. They catalogued. What happens to us? I asked as we passed a line of humans being herded toward transport platforms. The commander did not look at them. Most will be relocated. Relocated where? Where you cannot interfere. And the rest? A pause. Where they cannot suffer. I stopped walking. That's not mercy, I said. The commander turned to face me. Suffering is inefficient, it replied. We do not optimize for sentiment. I clenched my fists. You drank my water. Yes. That meant something. Another pause, subtle, but I felt it. It meant something to you, the commander corrected. Didn't it mean something to you? For the first time, the commander hesitated. That night they let me sleep. Not in chains. Not in a cell. In a tent constructed from materials that adjusted to temperature and pressure automatically. Clean. Silent. I lay awake staring at a ceiling that softly pulsed with alien light, my mind racing. I should have been dead. I should have been irrelevant. Instead, I was involved. Outside, the world continued to end. And somewhere deep within the invaders' vast fleet, something had shifted, subtly, dangerously. Because one commander had accepted a gift. And gifts create obligations. At dawn, the commander returned. You will come with me, it said. To where? To witness. Witness what? The commander's eyes held mine. The moment your species fails. Or, the moment it surprises us. They did not bring me to a throne room. They brought me to a mirror. The structure rose from the scorched ground like a blade driven point first into the planet. Smooth, black, reflective. Not polished but alive. The surface responded to proximity, rippling faintly as we approached, as if the building itself were breathing. The commander gestured for me to follow. Inside, the air felt heavier, charged with something that made my skin prickle. No visible lights, yet everything was illuminated, soft, even shadowless. At the center of the chamber hovered a sphere the size of a small vehicle. Within it, images flickered. Cities, forests, oceans. My world. Or what remained of it. This is not surveillance, the commander said inside my mind. This is consensus. What does that mean? I asked. It means, the commander replied, that this structure does not show what is. It shows what will be, based on probability, behavior, and precedent. The sphere shifted. I saw humanity fragmenting, groups fighting over dwindling resources, armed conflicts erupting among survivors, power consolidating around violence. I saw enclaves rise and fall, tyrants crowned in desperation, hope weaponized and then discarded. I watched versions of my species tear itself apart long after the invaders had left. My stomach twisted. You did this, I said. No, the commander corrected. You did. The images changed again. A different path. Smaller groups. Cooperation born not of ideology, but necessity. Shared water. Shared shelter. The slow, painful rebuilding of trust. The probability markers beside the image were lower. Much lower. This outcome, the commander said, occurs in less than 4% of modeled futures. I looked at the sphere. And what tips it one way or the other? The commander turned to me.
Intervention.
I laughed bitterly. You already intervened. Yes, it replied. Now we are deciding whether to intervene again. They called it an evaluation campaign. Not a war. Not an occupation. A test. Across the planet, select zones were designated for observation. In those zones, the invaders reduced their presence. No patrols. No enforcement. Just absence. Humanity was given space. And watched. You're judging us, I said. We are measuring you, the commander corrected. That's the same thing. It is not. I crossed my arms. So what am I doing here? The commander regarded me for a long moment. You are an anomaly. That didn't sound flattering. Individuals who offer resources to their executioners, it continued, are statistically irrelevant. Lucky me. And yet, the commander said, your action altered my decision-making parameters. I felt a chill. You're saying you broke? No, it replied calmly. I am saying I changed. Over the following cycles, days, I think, time blurred, I was shown more. Records of other worlds, other species, planets that had resisted and been erased, worlds that had surrendered and been preserved, contained, curated, reduced to manageable populations under constant supervision. You don't conquer, I said slowly. You prune. Yes. And you think that's mercy? It is efficiency. Those aren't the same. The commander did not argue. Instead, it showed me a world of crystalline oceans and floating cities, beautiful beyond words. They fought, it said. They lost. The image shifted. The cities were gone. They begged, it continued. We preserved samples. Samples. I felt sick. What happened to compassion? I asked. The commander's bioluminescent markings dimmed slightly. It was removed, it said. Removed. Long ago. We found it interfered with survival. I thought of the water, the way it had knelt. You still have it, I said quietly. The commander's gaze sharpened. You are mistaken. Then why did you drink? Silence. For the first time since we met, the commander turned away. The evaluation campaign did not go well. In many zones, humanity proved the invaders right. Violence escalated. Hoarders rose to power. Water was guarded with guns. Refugees were turned away, sometimes shot before they could beg. Each failure tightened something invisible in the air. They're losing patience, I said. Yes. And when they lose patience, what happens? The commander did not answer immediately. When it did, the words were cold. Final measures. But not all zones failed. In a region once dominated by dust and ruin, survivors restored an old pumping station. They rationed water not by force but by rotation. Children carried buckets. Elderly taught filtration techniques passed down from memory, not manuals. They shared. The probability marker flickered upward. Barely, but enough. They're doing it, I whispered. They are delaying failure, the commander corrected. That's all survival ever is, I shot back. Delayed failure. The commander studied the image. Your species is inefficient, it said. Yet, I replied, here we are. The conflict came from within the fleet. Not all commanders agreed with the evaluation campaign. Many viewed it as a waste of time, a deviation from protocol, a dangerous indulgence. You are compromising objectivity, one of them said. Its voice layered, synthetic, emotionless even inside my mind. This species has already failed. They have not completed the assessment. my commander replied. They do not deserve assessment. I stood there, invisible but present, feeling like a child listening to gods argue over whether ants deserved sunlight. What happens if they overrule you? I asked later. The commander's answer was simple. I will be decommissioned. And me. You will be irrelevant. I swallowed. Is that why you're doing this? I asked. To save yourself? The commander looked at me. No, it said. I am doing this because I remember something I was designed to forget. The final evaluation was scheduled. A convergence. In a single observation zone, humanity would be tested under controlled stress. Resources limited. Time constrained. No intervention. If cooperation prevailed, the species would be preserved. If not, extinction would be optimized. This is insane, I said. You're forcing them into a corner. Yes. They'll turn on each other. Most likely. Then you already know the outcome. The commander's eyes held mine. Do you? I was given a choice. Not officially. Not ceremonially. Quietly. You can influence them, the commander said. How? By example. I laughed bitterly. I'm no leader. You offered water to your enemy, it replied. Leadership is irrelevant. What if they kill me? Then your species will have answered the question. They dropped me at the edge of the zone at dawn. No announcement. No protection. Just me, a container of water, and a crowd of desperate survivors staring at me with suspicion and hunger in their eyes. A man stepped forward, weapon raised. Is that water? He demanded. Yes. Give it to us. I shook my head. I'll share it, I said. If you do. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Why should we? Someone shouted. I took a breath. Because this is the last test we'll ever take. They laughed. Then someone lunged. The container shattered. Water spilled onto the dust. For a moment, time stopped. Then, a child dropped to their knees, scooping mud and water into trembling hands. An old woman pulled her back, shielding her with her body. Someone lowered their weapon. Someone else followed. The crowd hesitated, balanced on a knife's edge. Above us, unseen, the fleet waited. The commander watched probability curves fluctuate wildly. This was not strategy. This was chaos. Humanity's favorite element. I knelt in the mud, helping the child drink. A man offered me his canteen. Another offered shelter. The first shots rang out from the perimeter. Screams followed. The test had begun. Hours passed. Then days. People died. People shared. Violence flared and was restrained. Again and again the outcome hovered unstable. Why are you still watching? One of the other commanders demanded. End it. The commander who had drunk my water stood silent. Then it spoke. They are choosing. The final calculation completed at dusk. The probability marker crossed the threshold. Barely. Enough. The fleet prepared to withdraw. Preservation protocols activated. Humanity would survive. Reduced. Scarred. But alive. I stood alone as the ships lifted from the sky, the darkness receding at last. The commander approached me one final time. You changed nothing, I said softly. They chose. Yes, it replied. But you reminded us that choice exists. What happens to you? The bioluminescent lines along its face glowed brighter. I will be altered, it said, so that I do not change again. I felt something tighten in my chest. That's cruel. It is necessary. I thought of the water, of kneeling, of choice. Then I did something reckless. I reached out, placed my hand against its armor. Then remember this moment, I said, even if they erase it. The commander looked down at my hand. Then slowly it removed its helmet once more and nodded. The fleet vanished. The sky cleared. The world did not heal, but it breathed. Years later, when water was plentiful again and the story had become legend, people would ask what saved humanity. Weapons? Strategy? Luck? I never corrected them, because the truth was quieter. It was a choice, a bucket, and an enemy who chose to drink. End.